Okay. Good morning, good morning. Welcome everybody to the Saturday Morning Mastermind. I'm Samantha Studebaker-Carl, broadcasting to you live from beautiful Southwest Georgia, and I'm here with my good friends Sandy and Dan Smith and Dan Sissick, and we may have some other folks jump on. I'm not sure what's going on with everybody today, but anyway, today we're going to be talking about how to talk to yourself to improve your daily life, your everyday life in different situations. And but before we get going, I want to go ahead and give everybody a chance to introduce themselves and welcome everybody who's watching. So go ahead and jump out, guys, and introduce yourself, and then we'll talk more about what we're going to be discussing this morning.
Good morning, Sandy here in Miami Beach. I can't seem to get my name to pop up here anymore on the Hangouts lately, but happy to be here and excited to discuss this chapter. There was a lot of info in it, so looking forward to the discussion.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Dan Smith. I live in Boise, Idaho. It's going to be a fantastic day today, and I'm looking forward to the discussion, so welcome for coming today.
Dan Sissick, and I'm here in Las Vegas, Nevada, and I also am looking forward to diving into this chapter. Kind of a little crazy this week, so I haven't fully looked into it, so I'm interested to hear what you all have to say as I kind of follow along and catch up. So talk to you guys in a little bit.
Good morning, this is Catherine Clement in Boulder, Colorado. Can you guys hear me okay? All right, cool. Good to be here.
Hi everybody, Danielle DeLyons out in Brawley, California, and equally excited to be here. Hope everybody's having a great day.
Awesome. Welcome, everybody. Okay, so for those of you who are watching, let us know that you're out there. Go ahead and jump over to SaturdayMorningMastermind.com. That's where you can connect with us on our live event page. That way you'll be able to join in on the conversation as we go through this topic. Now, if you're brand new here, what we're doing is we're actually studying the book What to Say When You Talk to Yourself by Shad Helmstetter. I don't know if you can see that. The sun's kind of bright and weird. It's at a weird angle this morning. We are on chapter, let's see here, what chapter are we on, 19 or 20? Let me get to the right page. Okay, chapter 20, which is situational self-talk. But let me just welcome everybody who's hanging out with us there. Let me jump over to the page real quick. Good morning, Dan, Aaron, Rhonda, BG, Heidi. Welcome, guys. Good to have you on this morning. Okay. So what is situational self-talk? Let me get back to where I can see you guys. Okay, in the chapter, it discusses situational self-talk as the kind of self-talk that adjusts situations by adjusting how we look at them. It is a practical, immediate, now kind of self-talk that you can call on anytime and will come to your aid the moment you use it. And then it also says, this instant form may help your attitude, overpower a bad habit, help you solve a problem or reach a goal, or motivate you to do better, but it accomplishes the task in a different way. Situational self-talk is used when you are confronted with any situation which you would rather not be in, or when you are presented with an unexpected opportunity which may require your immediate attention. And, so this is a great chapter. I know it was really long, guys, and we kind of discussed that a little bit in the pre-mastermind. But I think it's one of the most powerful ones because situational self-talk is the talk that you say to yourself when you're in the midst of a situation or if you're about ready to deal with a situation. And so let's kind of talk about some of the different situations that we can use situational self-talk in. And then maybe we'll jump into, what everybody thought was the most powerful thing in this chapter. But I really want to kind of dig into these different situations and talk about how we can use this talk to really make a difference in our lives. So some of the things that in the book, it gave some examples of you know, like a lady who had to cook for her whole family, and she wasn't happy about that situation. In the pre-mastermind discussion, BG mentioned that she's doing some home renovations, and she's a little frustrated with that, right? I mentioned social situations where, you know, I was uncomfortable in social situations, and then, of course, in the book, you know, it talks about maybe phone calls you have to take or things like that. What are some other situations, guys, that that you can think of that self-talk would help with?
Everyone was trying to be polite and not really for somebody else. I jumped out. I had a situation this week. I kind of got scammed this week, early on in the week, and I thought Microsoft was calling me, and because I'd been having some difficulties, I'd upgraded my computers to Windows 10 a while back, and I was having a lot of problems with them. I'm getting them straightened out, but so some people that I thought were from Microsoft called me, and I gave them access to my computer. Well, what they did is they downloaded a virus onto my computer, and then they want to charge you a whole bunch of money to take it off. But I figured it out in the meantime, and so I actually went into actually called Microsoft, and I had to pay $150 for them to go through and clean out my computer and get the virus off of there that these people had installed on my computer. And so then they've been calling me like all week long trying to get back into my computer. And I keep telling them, well, I went off on some people the other day. I mean, I lost it, and I was screaming and yelling at them, and I mean, I totally lost it. I was hacked off, you know. And then I thought about it, because something he talks about in this chapter is that when you flood yourself with anger like that, that you flood your entire body with chemicals, and those chemicals control you, and they will keep you like angry or in an upset state all day long. And I said, wait a minute, why should these idiots have that kind of power over me, you know? And let's see, I think it was on Wednesday, they called me 3 times that day wanting to get back into my computer. And it was like the first person I went off on, and I said, okay, I'm going to control my attitude. So why should these people control me? I'm going to control my attitude. And so I calmed myself down through using situational self-talk. And the other 2 people that called me later on, I was able to tell them in a very calm, collected voice that they are the scum of the earth, that they are bottom feeders, but they didn't affect my attitude, okay? And maybe that sounds crass, I don't know, but them idiots cost me $150, and that's all they do all day long, is they prey on people. And to me, that's the lowest form of life, okay? So anyway, I mean, I'm just keeping it real here, guys. I am a real human being, and I'm subject to every frailty that mankind has, you know? And yeah, these people, in my opinion, they're bottom feeders. They are the scum of the planet, okay? And that's just the way it is. So anyway, I use self-talk for myself as I was going through this section to actually calm myself down, and I was still able to tell these people what I thought about them, but I did it in a very calm and collected voice. So anyway, I'll turn it over to somebody else.
Well, I'll go into the family. I'm having teenagers and kids and things. Yeah, it can mess up your whole day. You know, situations happen, and we have a choice of how we're going to deal with it. And boy, the F-bombs and everything else went off in our house this week too. And I mean, I'm just being real. It's just the way it is sometimes. And you think, man, I've got all this personal development. I've read all these books, and I'm losing it. And your chemical balance, you can see your whole day rippling that way. And it is a choice. It's just very similarly to you, Dan. I had to choose. I am not allowing anybody, and that means anybody, family, people outside or whatever, destroy that, because it's you just feel so horrible after, and it kills your energy. It does so many negative things to you, and it's not who you really are so very often. And I like one of the stories in here where they were talking about the person that's driving in the car, and they turn into this beast, and then they go back to being their sweet self. And that kind of described me several times this past week with situations that I'm dealing with my kids. And it's almost like you want to avoid certain parts of life so you don't feel yourself going there, you know. So we tend to put it off or say, oh, here we go again, you know, and finding a better way to handle that for ourselves.
Well, I'll jump out now. For me, kind of following on Danielle's thing a little bit with family, I know I've had it's not been a confrontational type thing where, you know, we've gotten yelled or screaming or anything like that, but it's been more of an internal battle with just myself on some things that, and yes, I'm going into the past and dredging up the past stuff, but it still affects me today. I find myself, you know, one little thing might set me off somewhere else, but then somehow I jump from there into this family issue, and I just get really worked up, and you can see my whole demeanor just kind of change, and I just get, and it's like, and I'm doing it to myself. That's what's weird. Is like nobody's getting it. Nobody's getting the brunt end of it. Nobody's getting the, but I can feel it even in myself situationally as I'm driving along, or as I'm working, or as I'm doing something. It somehow some little thing will happen at work, or something will happen wherever, and then I jumped over to this way other unrelated issue, but it just spins in my head, and I get very irritated, very upset, and that issue grows in my head, and then I have to stop myself, say, what? This is not even related to this. This is something that's way from the past. It has no bearing. It has nothing. You know, reset, change, and go, and just move forward. And I've been dealing with that a lot lately, and I'm trying to, and I'm realizing in this book that, you know, by having gone through this book with, you know, as we're going through, I'm realizing I can stop that and change the mindset and focus on something else, which then again takes me out of that anger moment, out of that element, and the boiling up, and like Dan says, putting tons of toxic stuff in me within myself, and it's not even from something out there. So I think this is a good, you know, point where this chapter is coming in for me.
It was a good week for me to read this book. It seemed like I had a lot of situations coming up this week, and that I got to be able to practice this. You know, I had something with one of my neighbors, and unexpected, like just like talking behind me, sort of, and I was like, you know, like, what if you have something, come talk to me? And it, you know, I sort of stewed in myself for a couple days over it, and I realized how much was affecting me, and I'm like, why am I letting them affect me like this? I could feel it, like almost morphing my cells in my body, you know, like I'm very in touch with my body and mind connections, so I could feel it, and I'm like, I can't do this. Like, I need to create my inner peace, and then, you know, maybe it'll transform just by me being peaceful in myself, regardless of whether I say something to them or talk to them about it further or not. I have to not let this affect me this way. And I like the example in the book of, what was he talking about? Oh, about the changing the flat tire. Like, you never see somebody like whistling and like singing while they're changing a flat tire. And I had a problem where I was waiting for a car service to pick me up, and a friend was with me. We had just finished yoga, and I had to go see a patient, and he walked me to wait for a car to come drive me to see a patient. And the car was late. I saw him on the map going around in circles, and I was like, what is the problem? And I called him, and I'm like, hello, like, don't you see me on the GPS? And I was getting so frustrated, and my friend is like, that's not you. Who is this person? And I was flipping out. And then I remembered this from the book, and all of a sudden I'm like, okay, I'm gonna smile, and I'm gonna whistle. And I started smiling and whistling, and it dissipated everything. I was like, you know what? It's not that big of a deal. Like, I canceled that car and ended up getting a new one. But I ended up, you know, I think I would have carried that into the car and the person and all, you know, going forward in the night if I didn't cut it off, like, with some whistling and laughing. So I like that example, like those mundane things where you tend to get upset. Like, I think I'm going to just whistle from now on, whistle and smile from now on. That helped a lot.
I love that everyone, yeah, it's been a rough week for all of us, obviously. I know it certainly has been. Uh, it's been an amazing, wonderful week because I just got a brand new granddaughter named Annabelle, so we're really thrilled about that. But earlier in the week, we had some huge challenges and a lot of old stuff coming up right now. I think it's just some energetic thing happening to the universe. I know that sounds wooey, but seriously, everybody I know is really rocking really old and hard lessons, like core lessons that are being brought up in their lives, giving them the chance to heal those things again. So I love the way that everybody here on the panel is responding to these challenges. None of us were just, yeah, we might have gotten angry or, super emotional or out of control for a little bit, but then we kind of reeled ourselves back in. So that's wonderful and I want everybody to recognize that and congratulate themselves for that and celebrate it because there's people out there that didn't. They chose to go blow up a school or something. I mean, there are other ways to respond to things. So we did really good, guys. So, this is a great book. I love this chapter because this is where the rubber meets the road, so to speak. It's when you're in these intense situations and how you respond to those and the choices you make. That's what really kind of sets you up for having to do all that other self-talk. If you don't respond right, you can be in a situation where you suddenly have 50 new affirmations to say every day. So I always just remind myself to breathe. When stuff like that's going on, I just try to remember to breathe. It doesn't help. Sometimes, I have these automatic triggers that just sort of happen, and those are the things that I'm being shown again. Oh yeah, you're still reacting to that. So, I need to go back and address those things. But if I can just remember to breathe, if I can just remember to ask myself, you know, 5 years from now, is this going to matter? Or if I only had a day left to live, would this matter? I mean, I ask myself questions like that because I know how ridiculous the monkey mind can get with things sometimes. So I just have to sort of call myself out sometimes and say, hey, what, really? Seriously? If you were dying tomorrow, is this going to be at the top of your priority list today? I don't think so. Let's get on with life. So I'm proud of all of us.
Yes, thank you, Catherine, for mentioning that. That is so important that we all are starting to recognize when we can make a change, and that's the first key, is to recognize when you can, and then take the steps to do so. So that, yes, congratulations to everyone, and congratulations, Catherine, on your new grandbaby. That's so wonderful. I'm so happy for you. Beautiful. Karen has a comment on the page. I wanted to go ahead and read this real quick. She says, a few minutes of anger, anxiety, negative stress, and frustration can literally toxify our physical systems for hours. Why do we do it? Why do we let ourselves get out of control? We do it because we thought it was okay to be that way. We grew up not quite shaken off the last vestiges of immaturity. We kept a few of the negative behavior styles of our childhood with us so we could trot them back out. When things don't go the way we want them to go, what Dan referred to in the part where we drive ourselves to distraction. Exactly. I think that's a good point there, that we bring those forward in our life when really they were kind of more, childish, like tantrums, if you will, and or just childish behaviors. And when we can recognize that we're doing it, then that's when we can make a change, right? In the pre-mastermind discussion, we have a few people that made some comments over there about different situations. I wanted to bring this one out. Loretta Holster, I hope that I'm not mispronouncing your name, Loretta, but she said that one of the situations that she deals with on a regular basis is that when something happens and she makes a mistake, she drops something or something along that line, that she immediately has this self-talk that pops up that says, you're so clumsy, or why can't you ever get anything right, or and those kinds of things. And I think that this is something that a lot of us deal with in many different ways, is that we make a mistake, or we do something that is not what we wanted to do, and then we when we start telling ourselves, we ask ourselves, what's wrong with you, or what's the problem, or why do you keep doing this, or whatever. And what do you guys think about what do you do in that situation? Let's get some ideas from everybody. You're talking down to yourself. I'm gonna mute out. We've got a dog next door who's kind of yikey.
Yeah, I'll jump out. I've talked about that several times in the past on this program. When I was like in my mid-20s, I was exposed to these ideas, and I've drifted into them and I've drifted out of them over the years. And I went for about a 10-year period where I didn't read books, I didn't listen to audios, I really didn't work on myself very much at all. But that was always in the back of my mind, that when you make a statement like that, you screw something up. I mean, just whatever. We're human. We all make mistakes. But then when you pound on yourself like that, that drives that into your subconscious mind, and it's like a loop. It creates a circle, and what comes out of your mouth goes into your heart, and the scripture says that out of the abundance of the heart the mouth speaks. And so you speak it again, you hear it again, it goes deeper into your heart. What's in your heart comes out of your mouth, and it creates this. It's like a dynamo. And in fact, there's a Greek word that we get our word dynamite and dynamo, dynamic, or dudamus. The Greek word is dudamus, but it creates what's called dudamus power, and creates this dynamo where it sets up this circular. What comes out of your mouth going into your heart, what's in your heart comes out of your mouth, and so it's really something that you have to short circuit, and it takes thought. This stuff that we're doing here is not easy. Okay, it takes work, and it's something you have to work at every single day, and you have to be conscious of every word that comes out of your mouth, because every word that comes out of your mouth is like a seed that is planted in the garden, and that seed will grow, it'll spring forth, it'll bring forth fruit, and then you have to eat of that fruit, and the fruit can either be bitter or it can be sweet. And so really it's a matter of, I've said this on this program a number of times. I mean, I didn't originate this. I get it out of books, I get it out of audios, but it says that the subconscious mind cannot take a joke. And so every word that you say sinks into your subconscious mind, and your subconscious mind, just like dirt trying to grow a seed, the dirt in the garden will grow a thistle, or it'll grow a tomato plant. And the dirt doesn't care. Whatever seed falls into that dirt will grow. Okay, and it's the same thing with our words. And so when you beat yourself up and you batter yourself, it creates that dynamo, or that dynamic effect where it revolves and revolves and revolves. And so it takes conscious forebrain thought to sever that thing off and to cut it off, just like pulling that plant. If you got thistles that are growing in your garden, you either have to take a shovel and you have to get them out of the root, or you have to spray some poison on them, or whatever. Anyway, you have to deal with that, and so you have to get it out of there. So we all do that as human beings, but when you're conscious of it, and that's just like what we were talking about just this chapter. Every one of us this week had some situation where we kind of went ballistic or something, for a few minutes, and then was able to rein it back in and bring it back in, and take control of our thoughts. And so really it's just a daily setting up like a watchman or a sentry, carrying a rifle and marching back and forth inside of your mind, to take control of your mind, to guard yourself from those thoughts. So anyway, I'll let somebody else talk.
Yeah, Dan, sometimes I have to have that sentry, rein in the one with the monkey mind, and I'll just tell him, just shut up. Stop it. That movie, that little video, Stop It. I'll watch that, because most of it's not true. Well, none of it is true, and all of it is past. And even if it was true in the past, it really doesn't matter, right? So it's just patterns that we've developed of ways, especially things in childhood that happen. You develop ways to cope with things, but those become habits, and then you respond to situations, like you were saying, Dan, that really have nothing to do with the situation that you're faced with at the moment. It's something, your mind just switches to something else and tries to pull that in. So it's always grasping at something. It's a horrible way to live. You really have to get that mind under control. And yeah, we're all going to lose it, for a little bit, minutes, hours, maybe even days, but at least we can reel it in by recognizing it for what it is, because we have these stories that we tell ourselves about things, and we have these justifications for feeling the ways we do, and it's all BS. That's all it is. So it blocks your happiness, and not to say that you have to be in pure bliss every moment of every day, but really, I mean, that's what we're all. That's why you go for the job. That's why you try to do all these things externally to make yourself happy, and it doesn't work if you can't control that inner um, that inner voice that's cutting you down, or telling yourself that you're not worth it, or all those things that are just not true. They're just things that are just not true. So these being able to just change your perspective in any situation. I mention sometimes something called equilibration, which is where you look at any situation, no matter how horrible it is, and you find the good points about it, because there are some good points. It doesn't matter what it is, even if it's oftentimes a death in the family. Maybe the family hasn't spoken for years, and suddenly a death in the family brings everybody together, and people start, there's always something about a situation that is good. There's always a lesson that comes out of it. Otherwise, it wouldn't happen. So, but being able to recognize those things, when you can see those things, then you can really, that kind of helps with that situational self-talk, because then you can see something good about it, and you can focus on that instead of the bad part. But if you keep focusing on the bad part, it kind of say, you got your chemicals going, and then you get your attitude going. Pretty soon everything's going. So pull out these things, look at what's good in the situation and reinforce that. And I hear what you're saying about the subconscious doesn't have a sense of humor, but we need to keep a sense of humor in these things. At least that's what gets me through most of it, because I can sometimes see my own ridiculousness and just get to laughing about that.
Yeah, imagine if we actually videotaped ourselves when we're flipping out. I don't think we do it as often. and yeah, because I do kind of say that to myself. I must look like a wild, crazy banshee right now. And you don't want to appear that way, and it isn't your true nature. And Dan, you brought up so many. You always just have some very deep, very mindful thoughts of principles that we've been, a lot of us, not all of us, but a lot of us have had ingrained, and truly understanding what they mean. And I find myself again and again, especially since this book, finding how many times my behaviors and my self-talks go back to my childhood, and not even realizing how much it affected the way I behave and think. And this really opened me up to realize that it's not real, it doesn't matter, it is the past. Who cares what mom, dad, or whoever said to me? Is that what I really believe about myself? And it's when you can reprogram that thinking of what you really want and believe about yourself, you can change it. And it's a continuous work in progress, So awesome comments from everybody on that.
I was gonna say, I agree, Danielle and Dan. I'm realizing the power of what this book is doing, helping me realize when I'm in the moments or when things are coming up, that I can now start realizing better. I think sometimes part of the battle is knowing and understanding where it's coming from and why, and how to attack it then. A lot of times we are not taught this, and not, we're taught about everything else out in the world out there, but we're not taught, so much how to deal with ourselves and how to use the tools and things that are out there, like self-talk and things like that, to help keep us in balance and where we want to be. And I'm realizing the power of this book as we are going through it, how much more I still have to learn and incorporate into how I respond to things and deal with things to help keep me where I want to be, so I can be the most effective person I can be for others and serving others. So, yeah, I appreciate those comments.
I wanted to jump out here real quick because Catherine touched on something that I thought was really important when we're talking about these things that we say to ourselves that are, less than perfect. Is she mentioned about, feeling unworthy, or that, when we talk to ourselves in a negative way, it's because we feel like maybe we're not worthy of being the person that we ultimately want to be, right? Maybe there's a self-confidence issue, or maybe there's some internal programming from, our childhood where people talk down to us, and so that we don't think that we're as good as what we should be, or there's something wrong with us. And, in the last chapter, in chapter 19, with internal motivation, there's a huge list of a bunch of self-talk statements that you can use that can, improve your confidence, that can, increase your just overall well-being thoughts about yourself, and so for anybody who's out there who's, really struggling with the things that, you keep talking down to yourself or whatever, or saying there's something wrong with you, that chapter's got some great ones in there. So I encourage those of you to jump in there and read those. Okay. So and we're all kind of lost for words right now, aren't we?
I actually thought that Jason was going to jump in. I didn't see a microphone.
Uh,
And
Hey everybody.
Jason, you want to jump out?
My marvelous mastermind friends, it's so good to see you. I'm running on about an hour and a half worth of sleep right now, and just I'm just gathering up all this knowledge you guys are throwing out. It's just it's fantastic. Um, you know, like Dan said, this is just so, like Dan Sizik said, so powerful. This stuff. I mean, all of you guys are mentioning so many great things. The driving. I mean, I think I've used that as well. The talking to myself just to make myself relax a little bit more while I'm driving, and not feel like I have to be somewhere in such a hurry, especially when I really don't have a time that I'm supposed to be there. It seems like as soon as I get in the car, it's like rush, rush, rush. It's like, it doesn't have to be that way, But but yeah, talking to myself, I've got all kinds of all kinds of good notes here. Um, Boy, we're having just so many great things happening. Congratulations, Catherine. Um, that's just fantastic. You're talking about the emotions, and then you're talking about how it all kind of comes together, and it's that cycle and stuff. And um, I'm thinking, I'm thinking like alignment, as we pull ourselves into alignment with the words that we're using, and it starts to come out from within, like you're talking about, where the abundance starts coming from within, and our actions start backing up our thoughts and our words are also solidifying our feelings and our thoughts, and we're being that coach. We're starting to learn how to be that coach for ourselves automatically, and it takes work at first. It takes a lot of work at first. I think that's why Dr. Helmstetter is when he picks something out, a problem that he wants to address in this book. He for each one he tackles it from a couple different angles. So I think that seems to be key here. And if we can incorporate you know these frequencies that are good healing frequencies while we use this stuff, and just keep at it. One thing I think I've found has been key recently. I've noticed differences when I decide to actually listen to my tape when I go to bed, and then maybe even in the morning. And when I don't do that, and say I'm playing some like radio station in the background, I've noticed that has really set the tone for my day in the morning. I'm wondering if you all have had any experiences like that. Um, what do you say?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'll tell you what, I absolutely do not listen to radio in the morning. I don't listen to TV. I don't read the newspaper. I don't do any of those things because all of them feed that negativity that's going on in your brain. And if you want to overcome that stuff, you definitely don't want to be, feeding your brain with the crap that's out there. I mean, I know that it's normal, normal to be negative. I guess that's kind of like the thing that everybody is into, is just complaining and talking about all the horrible stuff in the world. But if you want to have a better life, you need to cut that crap out. I mean, literally, because that's part of the problem. And if you can instead do what Jason is talking about doing, listen to something good before you go to bed, because then your brain, even though you're asleep, your brain's still doing its thing, right? And it can continue on, and then it can keep on doing the positive thing even when you're asleep. And I'll give you an example. I watched two things the other night on television. One of them, I can't remember what it was. It was just some stupid movie, right? And one of the things with movies I've noticed is they kind of play along with, the common life. Everybody's complaining and throwing a fit, or, have these drama going on. And then after I got done watching that, I was like, oh, I do not want to go to bed with that in my brain, right? So I flipped through Netflix and I found this documentary. It was talking about the Dalai Lama, 10 questions asked the Dalai Lama. And so I watched that. And what was interesting is that, in the middle of the night, I realized I was dreaming about something that had to do with, monks and Tibet and things like that. And it was really interesting because before, I've watched, unpleasant movies and then gone to bed, and then I have all these wacky dreams that are, I mean, with dreams, it's all symbolism, right? It's all these emotional things that are going on in your head. And so, I mean, you can see there's a huge difference there in between, having, it was like one night I went to bed and I was watching, I don't even know what it was, something not so great, and then I kept having these weird dreams of spiders attacking me and running through spider webs, and I just can't get out of them, and then this, and then after watching the one about the Dalai Lama, I have these dreams about that kind of stuff. So, I mean, it just goes to show that the stuff, just like what Dan's talking about, the stuff that you plant in your brain, your brain keeps on thinking about it, keeps producing something relating to that. So, obviously you want to feed it positiveness, otherwise you're just feeding the problem, right?
Most definitely, Samantha. And I thought about something too, because I use this with my kids when I'm giving them advice, and it's remembering it for myself. We have the choice to respond or react to every situation, and we tend to forget to do that all the time. We react really quickly if it's something that pisses us off. If we're in traffic, and I have the pleasure of listening to my boyfriend sometimes in the car, and he'll get really pissed off at somebody in traffic, and he just reacts, and then 2 seconds later he's back to being a normal person again. And I think about that all the time because it's kind of funny when it happens. So then I think, geez, chill out, dude. You don't need to go that far. And then I put that back on myself with how I react and respond to different situations. And so it's not a good thing to have happen. And there was a really good, towards the end of the chapter on page 221 under the last subheading, the next situation is a chance to respond. And it was talking about from the moment of birth, if we were given a quart jar of energy and we could use it any way we wish to, what would we use it towards? Wholesome and worthwhile ways, or would you choose for yourself or the energy you might have left at this point in your life? And then it was asking that question, would you use it in anger and complaints and dissatisfaction and focusing on things that really aren't going to matter, like Catherine was saying, and have no bearing, they're pointless? Or would you spend it on worthwhile things that would give you fulfillment and a peace of mind? And I thought that was some really really important questions, and there's more to it, but that just kind of was a trigger that I thought was really important in the chapter.
I think that a lot of our disappointments and frustrations come from having these expectations about things that are very unrealistic most of the time, quite honestly. I agree with you, Samantha. I cannot. There are people that have alarm clocks that come onto the news, and I cannot imagine starting my day any worse way ever. I mean, I don't watch the news period at all. When things blow up, I guess I'm going to know about it, because I can't immerse myself in. I'm really thankful for the internet, because I can kind of look for things that are happening around the world that are upsetting that I want to send love to, but I can't just immerse myself in that daily barrage. Like at my mom's house, I had to live at my mom's house for about 3 months when I was in between houses, and there's either news, or if the news isn't on, it's like sitcoms, like crime-oriented sort of like NCIS or something like that, which is kind of, can be interesting to watch, and especially if you have a scientific mind at all. But at the same time, it's still like more negative stuff, like murders or, all that constantly, 24 hours a day. They do watch some of these, these talent shows where the people sing and stuff like that. And so thank goodness there's some good stuff in there, but it just seems like some people fill their entire day with negativity. And I really want to go back to expectations, because sometimes we compare ourselves to other people, and then we're judging ourselves because of false expectations, that we have, that we think we should be like those people. Or maybe in the car, I don't have road rage myself, but I have other rages. We all have our own. So, but I think road rage is a good example, because look at how differently people react in the car. Some people could be stuck in traffic for hours and it doesn't faze them. Like they put on their audiobook, or they have music, or they just use that time because that's the only time they get away from the rest of the world, so they really treasure that time. And then other people, they get stuck in traffic and suddenly they're like a demon. So being a nurse for so long, I have and having driven people to the hospital that needed to be there within minutes, and having to get around traffic and drive like a crazy person. Traffic is one of those things. If somebody's being rude on the road, I always just say, oh, they're trying to get their child to the hospital. That's what I tell myself. Oh, they're trying to get their child to the hospital. And then I just have no judgment whatsoever against them, right? Because I would do anything to get my child to the hospital. So sometimes we have these expectations about things. We assign expectations, and then when things don't go just our way, it's always a good question to ask yourself, who are you when things don't go your way? Sometimes the worst parts of us come out in those moments. It doesn't mean that that's our whole self, but those are parts that need to be loved. Those are parts about ourselves that have been robbed of whatever our expectation was, right? They're parts of ourselves that are frustrated, or they're feeling unloved or not heard or whatever. It's okay. I mean, I don't want you to stay there, but it's okay to acknowledge those pieces of yourself and love. Maybe that's the 4-year-old, stomping their foot because they didn't get something. Well, go ahead and put your arms around that kiddo and love them. That's why that moment's coming up, is so that you can see that piece of yourself that you've denied. Now you can give them the love and a lollipop or whatever, and then get back to adult life. But the expectations do us in. So if you can change your expectations rather than continually seeking to find something else that meets those expectations, then I think your life goes a lot easier, at least mine.
Yeah, thank you, Catherine. That reminded me, well, we've been talking a little bit about this stuff amongst ourselves. So it's been very present in my week as well, just looking at those expectations, and also for me, attachments. Like, where am I attached to something that's holding me back from my true self, or why am I getting attached to this if it's sort of boggling or confusing in my mind? If it's not, then it's not a good attachment if it's taking me off my center. And where, finding that center again, and also looking at the ego, because the ego wants to have those attachments, and the ego comes in like with all these expectations. Well, blah 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 blah, and it's like, shut up, ego. And so we get so off track. And then, like you're saying, just going back to that love in ourselves when those things are coming up. But maybe this is completely off topic, but anyway. And then, yeah, I was thinking when you said your mom watching the news, that's like my mom. As soon as I walk in her house, it's like the news is on in the background, and she wants to hang out, and I'm like running to the other room and being by myself, because I'm like, Mom, I cannot watch this all day long. Or have it in the background when we're eating dinner. And sometimes, eventually she's like, okay, go put on what you want, but I don't even watch TV. So I'm like, can we just like sit and not have the TV on? So yeah, and it's the same thing. Like, you wonder why someone's life maybe is so crappy, or they're so down and depressed. It's like, yeah, I want to know what's going on in the world, and I have my blips where I check things and see what's going on, but it doesn't mean to have the glaring negativity running in the background 24/7. So that's what my mom's argument always is. Don't you want to know what's going on in the world? I'm like, I'll focus on the positive things going on in the world for now. Thank you. So, yeah, good points. Thanks for sharing.
There's two main points of contention in my home between my wife and me, and one is temperature wars. She's got sweatshirts and a blanket on her, and I'm running around in shorts and no shirt. And the other one is just the first thing she does in the morning when she gets out of bed. She comes out in the kitchen, she turns the TV on and turns the news on, and the first thing that I want to do is I either want to get into a good book, or else I want to listen to a positive audio, And this book here is called, get down there, Success, the Glenn Bland Method. And it's getting to be a pretty old book. I think it was written in the 70s, mid-70s or something like that. But anyway, he has a chapter in there called 30 Golden Minutes. And what he talks about is the first 30 minutes of your day sets your day. And so what you think about in those first 30 minutes are golden. That is the time to get into a good book, or to get into a good positive audio, and really to cut off that negative as much as possible. So like I said, that is one of the biggest point of contentions between my wife and myself: temperature wars and what goes into our mind wars. So anyway, and we've been married for 11 years, so this is a we were married in midlife. She has her patterns that are set, and I have my patterns that are set. But anyways, yeah, the first 30 minutes of the day, or the last 30 minutes before you go to bed at night, what you put in your mind is so important. And that's where it's so important to read good books, listen to good audios, to read your own affirmations, to do your visualization, anything that you want to go into your mind. that's the time. I mean, you can do it all day long, but those are two critical times, first thing in the morning and last thing at night, just before you go to bed, to put something good and positive into your mind, and try to cut off that negative as much as possible. So I'll turn it over to somebody else.
I wanted to touch back on something that Catherine said about. Oh, now I lost my train of thought. Oh, but it was talking about how I think going back to all of the issues that we deal with, like past issues or childhood issues, and the reason why we keep bringing it up. I think for me, I'm starting to realize there's really a real unresolved issue that I want resolved. I just don't know how to get it resolved. So therefore, that's where it's interjecting in maybe some of these off-point issues where I get irritated, upset, and somehow it just says, "Oh, here's a moment. Let me jump in on this moment to just totally distract you and drag you back to this moment that was never resolved for me." I think, and going through this, it's helping me to see that and understand that. So thank you, Catherine. Now I just need to figure out how to get that resolved.
Yeah, I want to, real quick, Catherine, I wrote down some really good notes, and you made a key question. Who are you when things don't go your way? And I thought that was a pretty powerful question to ask ourselves when we see ourselves behave. Who are we becoming in that? And it goes back to that key word you used, and I'm going to incorporate that this week into my language more, to look at things as the word expectations. And I think we put a lot of those in our life in every situation, and we create that story. We've already plotted a story out in our mind beforehand, and 99% of the time it doesn't even happen the way we've already perceived it's going to happen, because we can't control other people or other elements of it, and it is a control issue as well that we have to work on. Excellent info.
Reminds me, I put a quote on Facebook earlier this week. I was just looking for it. I don't know if any of you know of Lisa Rankin. She does a lot of, I don't even know how to describe her, but you're nodding your head. So actually one of my like third cousin is like her CEO or something. So I've been looking at her stuff recently. I put this quote on Facebook this week, and it goes pretty good with what we're talking about. All of us can put on a good show when things are going our way. How we deal with adversity is how we deal with life. No matter how put together you might seem when things are going well, the true test of our character arises when everything falls apart. Lisa Rankin. So,
BG put a comment on the page, and so I want to read that real quick. She's referring to another a scripture in relation to what Dan posted on there, and she says, pleasant words are like a honeycomb, sweet to the soul and healing to the bones. So when we talk sweetly to ourselves and to others, it's healing. Those kind words we speak heal. That is so powerful, BG. And I wanted to also address what you mentioned in the pre-mastermind discussion. Of course, you were talking about how you're doing some home improvements, and it's been taking forever, and you're getting frustrated with it, and how you decided to change your self-talk about that. And I thought I wanted to read some of these, because I think this is really important for people to understand, is how you can change what it is that's going on in change your attitude towards something just by simply changing the words that you're speaking. So if you're frustrated about a situation, like BG's frustrated with her home improvement, she turned around what she was saying. She says, this is what I'm going to say now. And she says, no matter how long this takes, I will enjoy the process, because all of these little minor hindrances are building my skills and teaching me patience. I will welcome instead and relish this chance to again be a team builder with my husband for the home team, me and him. We will use these new skills we are learning to help our family members and take joy in doing so. I will look back on this time as a fond memory of us working together for all of the good. And then she says, we all have things that bog us down, and this book is a great way to help lighten the load by reframing what we are saying to ourselves. And BG, I just want to thank you so much for adding that, because your insight and you just have so much to give, and I love what you're saying there, and that's such a powerful suggestion for people and how to go about changing the words, and start focusing on the things that you ultimately want versus focusing on those things that you're dissatisfied with. And I also wanted to connect again with what Catherine was saying. And Catherine, you've made so many great points, and everybody is just loving what you're talking about today. But one thing that you touched on is, for instance, when you were talking about the when you're frustrated with people in traffic, is that you compare them to something that you experienced in your life, so that you would be non-judgmental towards them. So you compare them to rushing a baby to the hospital, right? And I think that when we do this, if we're in a situation where, say, we in traffic and that's no fun and people are cutting us off or whatever, or maybe we're at our job and something unpleasant happens there with another person, a person does something that we don't like, or maybe a family member is doing something you don't like or that frustrates you or whatever, is to kind of switch around the way that you see the situation, change in your mind what you think is causing that person to act that way into something that you wouldn't judge, right? And that you would have empathy for instead. And I think that that's a super powerful method for changing your attitude towards any given situation, particularly when it involves other people. What do you guys think about that? I know we're at the top of the hour, but I thought that was just a really important point.
I'll jump out on that one really quick, because at work, I had an instance a while ago where I'm a part of the management team and for in the accounting area, and we have a weekly management meeting. And there's one girl that's in charge of another area, and she constantly swears in the meetings, which to me I feel is unprofessional. It's not the area where you need to use that type of language. And another one of the coworkers kind of noticed that. I flinched a few times when I would hear her talk like that, because I'm like, not saying I'm not, not ever used the words or not ever, done that myself, but it's been when I've been really mad or upset. And usually, even if I'm in an area where I feel that it's not appropriate, I try to stop, and I will take that moment and pause and just, I tend to just look up and just say and rethink for a minute how I can say it. So it really kind of, and the controller kind of found out that me and this other person had talked a little bit. She had given me some suggestions, but I didn't follow up on it. I just kind of had gotten to the point that's the way she is. That's part of her personality and who she is. I don't think she realizes she does it. It's just so natural to her, but I don't think anybody's really ever called her out on it either. And so when it finally did come up, the controller, me and her, we talked and stuff. I said, I just didn't feel it was the most appropriate, and she's card back, and I appreciate it. But it was just weird how, in that sense, how I had to deal with it. But I had to change my mind about her. I had to go from letting it bother me to just like, okay, this is who she is. This is what she's about. She doesn't realize it. I still don't agree with it being the right way to talk in there. And if the controller, to me, who should have taken over and said, look, this is a professional area. This is where you need to, be mindful of everybody else in here. I really had to really step back. And, even now, she still does it a little bit. And I'm just, okay, that's who she is. But I had to live that out a little bit. And so I'm learning how to deal with that more and more as I go through situations like that.
Yeah, and I want to jump out real quick because I am so with you on that. It really doesn't even matter what words they are. Sometimes when words are spoken at certain frequencies, it makes you want to jump up and, like you said, look around and maybe see if someone is hurt or, what's going on. It breaks your state of mind, and nobody wants to listen to that at work all day, especially when it's that kind of stuff. Boy, I love what Sandy was saying about attachments and recognizing, being able to, when you recognize those attachments, then you can kind of move on, and you can realize the emotional reactions you're getting from those. And I was talking with someone about how, maybe it's possible to clear our, as Danielle was saying, we project these things, and as Samantha was talking about, what we focus on becomes our reality. And if we're surrounding ourselves with these things that have emotional response attachments to us, that we have those attachments to, and they're around us in our homes all day, and we're walking around from one side of the house to another, how many influences are we coming across that are putting us back in maybe not a also negative state, but a state of mind that's not conducive with where you want to be going, and so it kind of slows down your momentum. How many, I want to call them artifacts, do you have throughout your house that stir up some sort of emotional memory that, takes you out of your state of abundance, and your state of gratitude? Those are the two words that popped to my mind earlier, and how we can deal with, who we are when we kind of are thrown off course. Are we able to remind ourselves that our natural state is a state of abundance, and we don't need to be thinking in this scarcity mindset that puts us on guard so much, and also being grateful, that can certainly help us get through some of those difficult emotional states. And if we just choose to draw a line in the sand, draw a line with ourselves and say, I know this isn't the way, I understand it's not the way it is, but I'm telling myself this is because I know it's where I want to be. And even though I understand that it's not the truth, I know it will become the truth. And so I'm, drawing that line in the sand, and I'm saying, this is what I want. I don't want this other stuff anymore. And use all this to move forward. Just so powerful, and I'm so grateful to have been introduced to this book by you guys. I really appreciate you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you for everybody's brought up such good things today, and I wish I could remember the name of that movie that came out a couple years ago. It's about a boy and a tiger and a boat. Do you guys remember this? Did you see this movie?
The Life of
The
Pi.
Life of Somebody. What was it? The Life of Pi or something like that? Yeah. Wonderful movie, and it just goes to show that, you choose how you look at things. And we may, we're all little control freaks. We really are. We want it to be our way. Anytime if you've ever looked at somebody and said, well, they're just trying to control things. Well, guess who's trying to control things? You are in that moment, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't be upset about them trying to control it. So we're all little control freaks. We all want it our way. But we have to remember that those things that we're getting upset about in that other person, those are still parts of ourselves that need to be loved. We're seeing it in someone else, but it's still parts of us that need to be loved. So you're in charge. You may not be in control of everything, but you're definitely in control of your happiness, because your happiness is based on how you perceive things, and you have the control to change your perception in any given moment. There are people that have the same physical condition that I have that are miserable every day of their lives because they focus on that. They focus on what they can't do. They focus on what it robs from them. They focus on all of these things. And when you have something in your life, whether it's pain or whatever it is, could be something as simple as emptying the cat box. When you have something that's in your life all the time that has to be done, you have to find some way to reconcile with that. You can't just hate your life every day. You can't live that way. You have to find some way to reconcile, even if it's the craziest fantasy you've ever heard of that nobody in the world would believe. If it makes you happy about that situation, tell yourself that thing and believe it. Okay. Just uh, you can't, especially those daily things that you have to deal with, like the woman cooking for her family. She had to find a way to reconcile that. Otherwise, her entire life would have been miserable. And that's how we are. And if you've got a situation that by all means, do everything you can to change that situation, take action, seek and find and do all these things. But if it's still there, then find a way to deal with that where it feels good in your heart so that you can stay in that space every day, because the world is hard enough without, adding extra misery onto yourself. And you're the only one that's doing it. It's all up there in that monkey mind with the stories and the expectation. So I know we're after the hour. I'll come off here. Thank you so much. It was so good to be back, and I look forward to seeing you guys next week. Have a great week.
Oh, thank you, Catherine. I'm glad that you brought that up there at the end. I thought that's a good way to kind of wrap things up. I know we're at the top. We're past the top of the hour, guys. So everybody has made some wonderful points, and I hope that you all have gained some insights from this session. And thanks so much for joining us. I hope you all have an awesome and amazing, wonderful weekend. Be sure and jump over and find us on Google+. Follow Mindset Mastery Collective. Meet us here again next week at 10 a.m. Eastern, Saturday morning, mastermind.com, and like our video, subscribe to us on YouTube, all that fun stuff. And of course, if you know somebody that can benefit from this, then by all means share this video with them. We want to help as many people as we can. We want for you to be able to help as many people as you can, and we appreciate all of you who are participating in the discussion this week. And thank you so much. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next week. Bye for now.